No, 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 no. Where am I? This is bad. This is bad. Let's go straight to my front door. Just keep going. No! I'm just trying to build a bridge. Let me build my bridge, please. There's nothing over there. So I'm gonna do something like this. And then I'll be safe, right? Seriously though, what did that? Oh, uh-oh. It's got a lag spike. Why? Okay, I don't got much time. Oh, I'm so freaked out now. It literally came from nowhere. Come on. Jeez. What? There, okay. I just want some wood. I don't need the attitude. Oh my gosh. What was that? Oh, it's just you guys. Okay, I gotta get back. Gotta get back. Why do I hear a heartbeat? Ah! No, 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 no.
This mythical creature has a very unique story, but to truly understand it, you must first understand the legend
do you still
of
have
the
the
ancient
water?
Enderman.
Of course.
It
Cool.
all began
What about
long,
nugs?
long ago,
No, I
back when
smoked
the ancient
open
Enderman
nugs.
used to
All
rule
good, Mum?
the overworld. It was such a nice place back
Here,
then,
keep
with
a couple
many
of
different
nugs.
lives of all different
Here,
varieties,
have this joint and
living
smoke.
in
You know the
peace.
usual.
Well,
Yep.
it was like
Son,
that
son.
until those foul evil beings arrived and attacked. And as such, the Endermen were forced to hide underground, and they
So we're
barely
doing now,
survived
don't
by
smoke.
living in small, unsafe strongholds. But they didn't even last too long, as they were very quickly found by these evil creatures, and many were killed. They were forced into a corner, and it looked like they were going to be extinct very soon. And that's when the ancient ancestors cast the spell, a spell that took them here, to the empty wasteland that we now call the End. When they arrived, they lost a majority of their power, and so ever since then, they have been unable to fight the only other living being here, the Ender Dragon. And because of that, they couldn't do whatever they wanted to do, as otherwise they would be incurring the wrath of the dragon. And so the Endermen had nothing else to do other than wander the empty End Islands endlessly. And so that's the story that the Endermen tell each other about their origins. And for millions of years to come, billions of Endermen later, nothing changes. The Endermen continue to wander the End Islands endlessly, never growing on their once impressive legacy. Well, it was like that until one day a young new Enderman was born. And this young Enderman was different from all others, as it didn't want the Enderman species to end like it is now, isolated on empty islands, achieving nothing. It wanted the Endermen to all unite, and for them to restore their power and glory, and for the Endermen to take back their lost home from all that time ago, and for them to have revenge on these evil beings that caused them to be here today. That's what he wanted. But he was the only one that felt that way, as all the other Endermen thought that he was crazy, and that plan would be impossible to execute. Well, all the Endermen except one. There was a crazy old Enderman that had many different theories on many different things. But one of the theories that he was more certain on was that the portal in the center of the End Island was a portal back to the world that they originated from. Now, he didn't have any actual proof for that, but he had seen many Endermen go into that portal, and none have returned so far. So that must mean that they had all found something just so amazing that they didn't want to come back, or they had all died. Now, although this young Enderman was listening to a crazy old Enderman, he didn't know what else he could do, and so he decided to give this crazy plan a try. And so he travelled all across the end until he reached the main end island, at which point he dodged many of the attacks from the Ender Dragon, and then he finally jumped in, and immediately he went unconscious. But he was alive, and when he opened his eyes, he was amazed. The old Enderman was right. This portal did take you to another world, and this world was amazing. And so the Enderman ran outside and was stunned to see this lush world with different landscapes and animals and even a different sky. It was so different to the end, and all of this had been hidden from them for thousands of millennia. He felt like he needed to show the other Enderman the wonders of this world, but first he had a mission to do. Get rid of all those evil beings that banished the Enderman from this amazing world. And so he started to run, searching for these beasts. However, very quickly he found himself distracted as he encountered all these new life forms that he had never seen before, and he would just stand there staring at them for hours, amazed at what he saw. But he knew he couldn't stay distracted for too long, as after all he did have a battle to fight first. And so he kept on running and running, looking for these evil beings that he's been told so much about. But by the end of the day, he hadn't found them yet, and now it was starting to turn into night. Now, that might sound normal to most, but for this young Enderman, it was the first time he ever saw a change in the sky. As in the end, the sky just remains static, and so he stood there, just staring at the sun as it disappeared into the horizon. However, it probably wasn't the greatest idea for a creature that had spent its entire life in the dark to be staring at the brightest light source in the entire world. And that's because his eyes began to melt. But luckily, not all of it. Just the purple outer casing that had allowed the ancient Enderman to see in the extreme darkness of the end. And now with that purple casting melted away, the Enderman's true eyes were revealed. And they were green, just like the ancient ancestors that once lived here. But regardless of his green eyes, it was now night, and he was about to experience something even stranger. The undead rising. At first, he was terrified, but very quickly he calmed down, as they all just walked around him, as they really didn't care about him. They just went along with their normal night-to-night business, and that was very strange for him to see, as any other species to his own, back in the end, was seen as a threat that needed exterminating. So, seeing a peaceful interaction between two different mobs was very unusual to him. But before he could fully comprehend that fact, he came face to face with something even more shocking. Another Enderman. Immediately he teleported over to the other Enderman, but by the time he reached him, the other Enderman had vanished. The green-eyed Enderman thought that he was the only one here. So, when did these ones get here, and why hadn't they returned to the end? He decided that he'd figure out the answers to those questions later, but for now he'd continue with his exploration of the world and his search for those evil creatures. But again, whilst exploring, he became distracted, as he would often stop walking and just stand there, being amazed at how peaceful and beautiful life was within this world. And so very quickly, his desire for revenge against those evil creatures faded, as it became clear that everything here wasn't violent like the stories he had heard whilst growing up. And so he had a new goal in his life, and that was finding a way of bringing all the other Endermen to this world so that they too could enjoy its beauty and peace. And so now he was on the search for a portal, and he assumed that portal would be on the surface like it was in the end. In reality, it wasn't, but he didn't know that, and so he kept on walking and walking for several nights and days, but never found any portals. But he was resilient and never stopped. Well, that was until he reached a dead end, as he encountered the ocean. Now, he had never seen an ocean before. In fact, he hadn't even seen water up until this point, so he was very cautious when he first looked at it, and when he did eventually look, he saw his reflection. And so, as he leant down to touch this strange reflection of his, he fell in the water. That was a lethal mistake. Instantly, he started to burn and burn as he desperately tried to get out. He was in immense pain, but luckily, before he died, he was able to teleport away. And then he just stood there, his entire body burned by the water. Now, luckily, his skin was able to regrow very quickly, but the damage had been done. And so now, all he had was a thin, white skin, bleached white from all the bone. There was barely covering. And so this brave young Enderman had become the White Enderman. And he was very lucky to have survived that ordeal. But as he sat there staring into the water, he had a strange sensation. He felt almost as if he was being watched. And so as he turned his head, there he was, the Steve, just staring at him, with his sword drawn. The Steve looked terrified at what he was seeing. He had never seen a White Enderman in all of his years of exploring. He wasn't sure if this was a threat or not, but just to be safe, he attacked first. The White Enderman was scared. He didn't want to hurt this player, but he also didn't want to be hurt himself, and so he teleported away. But the player followed him and attacked again. The White Enderman was scared for his life, and so, not knowing what to do, he closed his eyes and hit back. But when he eventually opened his eyes from shaking so much, he saw what he had done. He had just killed the Steve. He didn't mean to do that. He only meant to protect himself, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. And so, very quickly, word spread of an evil White Enderman and how he was a brutal and vicious being sent to kill the player. But when he heard that, he was very angry. As he wasn't a vicious creature, he was just trying to survive an unwarranted attack. But no one believed his side of the story. They all believed that he was a vicious creature and he was going to kill them next. The White Enderman did not like how they were spreading lies about him, but he knew it would be best to just stay hiding and watch the world from a distance, as he did not want everyone in this world to be fearing for their lives because of him, as he just wanted peace for this amazing world that he had moved into. But very quickly, that attitude would change for the White Enderman, as every time he was spotted, he was the victim of an attack. Enough was enough for the White Enderman. He was going to show them viciousness and brutality, and so he began emerging from the shadows, killing off villagers, mansions, any and all life that tried to attack him in the past, and he was brutal in his spree of violence. He never really planned on being like this after he saw how peaceful this world was, but after they stopped showing him peace, he did the same. But this violent rampage of the White Enderman all came to an end on one winter night. He was making his way to a village when he was suddenly ambushed by a group of Endermen and attacked. He blacked out. When he was eventually awoken, he was in a prison cell in a stronghold. He went to teleport away, but couldn't. He went to mine out, but couldn't. And so, he was stuck there, with just his thoughts and anger building up inside of him. He wanted to be violent. He wanted to go out there and attack even more villagers. But then, he had a sudden moment of realization. He had become the vicious creature he had come to originally take revenge on. He was the problem. He was the evil one. And so, it was at that moment that he calmed down, and he realized he could just open the front door. And this place reminded him of something that he had heard in legends whilst growing up. But before he could properly explore this place, his world began to shake, and then... And to find out what happens next to the White Enderman and the rest of the world that he was in. How did this creature get here, and why is it so evil? Find out as we explore the story of the Farlands. Our story begins just after the end of the Great Illager War, just as peace had begun returning to the overworld. However, as peace was now settling in on the Minecraft world, all the Steve clones, who had originally been made to defend the villagers during this war, became obsolete. Now, although these clones had originally been made for this war, they had, over all these years, become an integral part of villager life. And as such, even after losing their primary function of defense, the villagers still decided to keep them. As after all, they had built up quite a strong bond with most of these fierce warriors. And so, over the next few decades, life flourished for most of the villagers, as they farmed, traded, and slept, all while the Steve clones meticulously watched over them, keeping them safe. Well, all the Steve clones were like that, except one, as there was one Steve clone that wanted to do much more for the villagers than just protect them from the village, as he wanted to go out and find something that would progress their society in a massive way. And as such, as soon as this war was over, that Steve left the villages and began on an exploration to find that something.
Let's pause it. Let's head in. do this. Done. Oh hi, the weekend is over. The week is over. Like, last week is over now. The weekend is over. You know what I mean. I'm back at school now, you heard. Gang, you heard. Smoke a blunt for day and yeah, with YouTube.
Just temporarily. It's kind of a complicated situation. The house belongs to a family member. They were going to be gone for a few months. That sort of thing. I was going to be there on my own. So obviously I thought, what if it's haunted? There wasn't anything in the house when I moved in. There is now. I was in the main
That's my
hallway
school.
unpacking some
That's
stuff
my house over
when
there.
the doorbell
Remember?
rang.
Yeah.
That put me on edge right away because the house
That's
is
my
at the
parents'
end of a
house.
long driveway,
Okay, so this
kind
is
of
all.
out of the way. You have to go looking for it. There was an old woman at the door. This was in broad daylight, but there was still something kind of off about her. She was really tall, like a full head taller than me, and I thought there was something weird about the way she looked. It was like none of her clothes fit her properly. She took my hand and smiled really wide and told me that she was from the neighborhood council or something like that, and asked if she could come in and talk to me. My gut reaction was to say no, but I couldn't really think of a reason to. She was just an old woman. What was she going to do? I really wish I had just slammed the door in her face. I brought her into the living room, and she sort of tottered behind me, like her feet didn't fit into her shoes properly. She sat down without asking and grinned at me until I took a seat across from her. For about a half a minute, she didn't say anything, just smiled and stared at me while it got increasingly awkward. Just as I was about to break the silence, she fished in her pocket and pulled out this really big, old-fashioned sweet, the type that comes in that see-through wrapping.
Here,
She said.
eat this.
I should probably point out here that she spoke really quietly, so it was difficult to hear anything she said. I accepted the sweet, kind of taken back, and unwrapped it. It was dark red, almost black. I popped it in my mouth because she was still grinning at me and nodding her head. Have you ever walked around behind a supermarket where they keep the big bins? They throw meat that's gone bad in those bins. Imagine that rancid smell, but on a hot summer day. It's so thick you can almost feel it in the air. That's what this sweet tasted like. I almost spit it out onto the floor, but wanting to be nice made me chew the thing and force it down my throat. The woman was talking all the time, but between the taste and her quiet voice, I barely heard her. My mouth tasted like rotten meat, so I politely told her I was going to go get some water and ran into the kitchen. When I came back, she was gone. I had been in the kitchen for less than 30 seconds. My first reaction probably should have been to assume that she went to the bathroom or had to leave in a hurry. Instead, I searched the entire house. I went through every single room, convinced I was going to open a closet or look under a bed and see her stuffed in there, grinning at me. That didn't happen, obviously, but I was still extremely on edge as the sun started to go down. I felt like I was turning off the light in my bedroom after spotting a giant spider in there. That night, I propped a chair against my bedroom door because I just couldn't shake the feeling that the woman was still in the house somewhere, hiding. I woke up at around 2 in the morning and heard creaking floorboards downstairs. It was an old house and unfamiliar. I kept telling myself that until the noises stopped. When I woke up the next morning, there was a red sweet on the living room table. I'll tell you the same thing I told the police. No, I can't be absolutely certain that the sweet wasn't there the day before. Maybe I had just overlooked it, but I didn't think so. They told me that the organization the woman claimed to come from didn't actually exist, and clearly thought I was wasting their time. After they left, I searched the entire house again, and then the grounds. Then I searched them again. By the time I was finished, I had managed to calm down a bit and looked at the situation rationally. The woman probably left the suite there the previous day, and I just didn't notice. I had searched the whole house twice now. There was nowhere she could possibly be hiding. She was probably just some doddery old lady who wandered off while I was in the kitchen. As I prepared to go to bed, I had managed to fully delude myself into thinking nothing strange was going on. I decided not to do anything childish like blocking my door, because what was I afraid of? Even if she somehow was still inside the house somewhere, what was she going to do? At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up abruptly, knowing in the back of my mind that something was wrong. I guess I must have heard something in my sleep. I turned over onto my side and reached out to turn on the bedside lamp, groping around because I was in an unfamiliar room. When the light came on, I saw the old woman standing right next to my bed. I only got a glimpse of her because as soon as I screamed, she scuttled backward out of the door really fast. I only got the briefest glimpse of her before she vanished into the unlit hallway outside my door. I now believe that the human brain has a special compartment for dealing with experiences far outside of the realm of the natural. If I had woken up to find a burglar in my room, I probably would have gone numb with panic. If there was a lion at the foot of my bed, I would have been too paralyzed with fear to do anything. But as soon as the woman was gone, that special compartment took over. I jumped out of bed and slammed the door shut, then shoved a chair up against the handle, and then dashed for my phone. No signal, no internet. I later found out there was nothing wrong with the phone or the local service. I think that she was interfering with it somehow. The drop from the bedroom window wasn't too high. If I landed just right, I would probably avoid injury. But what if I sprained an ankle or broke my leg? I had a sudden vision of pulling myself across the dark garden while the woman sprinted after me, and decided I didn't want to risk it. That gave me two options. Wait out the night in my bedroom, or try to get out of the house now. I went for the second one. I was thinking that my flimsy barricade wouldn't hold if the woman decided she wanted back in. I broke one of the chair legs off and crept slowly into the hallway, reaching carefully for the light switch. When I pressed it, the lights came on for a second and then faded out. I flicked the switch a few more times. Nothing. Some gut instinct told me she was sabotaging them somehow. I used my phone for light as I slowly, quietly crept along the upstairs hallway and down the stairs. The light barely traced the shapes of the walls and the dark, yawning frames of open doorways. I jumped at every single shadow and unidentifiable shape, certain that at any second that grinning face would appear out of the shadows. I got downstairs and to the front door. I had double locked it and put the chain in place. Just as I was reaching for the first lock, I heard rapid, uneven footsteps at the top of the stairs, approaching swiftly. I undid the first lock. A high-pitched shriek came from halfway down the stairs, and I screamed as I undid the second lock and wrenched the door open. It stuck fast. I had forgotten the chain. I glanced behind me and saw the tall, spindly shape of the woman half running, half falling down the stairs toward me, her head lolling backward and her mouth hanging open. I can't even remember getting the chain off. I might actually have just yanked the door open so hard I broke it. In any case, the last I saw of the woman was her face, inches away from me, as I slammed the door shut. I sprinted to the nearest house and eventually they called the police, possibly because I was half delirious with fear and babbling incoherently. The police once again failed to find anything unusual. It's been a week. I'm staying at a friend's place, sleeping with the lights on and the bedroom door barricaded. The house's real owners aren't back yet. I'm not sure what I'm gonna tell them, but I have to stop them from going back there. Somehow. This isn't a haunting. It's an infestation. I can't stop thinking about all of the holes in our defenses, the windows and doors left open, the strangers invited into our living rooms. I just hope to God it's the house that she wanted, and not me. I was about 15 minutes from finishing the night shift at work when there was a massive crash on one of the windows in the office. So I get up and go check it out. Someone has thrown quite a sizable rock through one of the windows on the front of the building. This is made especially weird because I'm working in the industrial district at 11:30 at night with none of the other businesses open. I go back to my desk, put a quick call through to security to let them know, and then I decide to head home. As I'm leaving the building, I'm freaking myself out about it more and more, and end up running to my car, getting in, and taking off as fast as I can. I'm almost home, and I've started to calm down a bit when I realize that I didn't unlock my car when I got in. It had been unlocked the whole time. I do a quick check with my hand in the back seat, but there's nothing there. Fast forward 30 minutes. I've called a friend of mine who says he is out drinking at a bar nearby, so I decide I'm going to go join him. I jump on my bicycle and start riding over. I'm riding along the road on my bike. It's a nice night, and I'm in no big rush, just enjoying the moonlight, when I hear someone riding behind me. I straighten up and stick to one side of the road. He passes me really slowly, and when he is right beside me, he shoots me a smile that I can only describe as purely insane. I kind of flinch and am taken back as he rides on. That's when I realize he is riding my mom's bike. Needless to say, I turned around and went home, and when I got there, sure enough, her bike is missing, and one of my car doors is open. This person was crouched behind me the entire drive home. I remember it was about 9 p.m. and the kids' parents would be getting home in like an hour or so. I had put the kids to bed, and so I was downstairs watching TV by myself. However, every so often the TV would flicker with static. To be honest, it was starting to scare me. It wasn't until the point when I looked up from the TV and out of the nearby window when I lost it. There wasn't actually anything outside, but it seemed as if it was the reflection. I saw what looked like a tin man standing not too far away from me behind the couch. Needless to say, there wasn't actually anything there when I snapped my head around to look at the spot where it was standing in the reflection. I grabbed all my stuff and wanted to get out of that house then and there. Instead, I ran upstairs and actually sat down quietly where the kids were sleeping until the parents got back home. I particularly remember when the parents came home and I had started to leave. I was pulling out of their driveway in my old Ford Laser, and I looked up into the kids' bedroom window. The same reflection I saw earlier was looking back down at me, with a hand raised, as if waving goodbye. I have never babysat anyone again. I worked at a women's clothing mail order catalog call center. During training, a veteran worker was talking about getting to know the frequent callers and the story of one of them. The old lady used to call in often. She was blind, but would have someone help her pick out things. The manager of her apartment complex, I think. She would order often, and they got to know her by name. Eventually, she stopped calling in, so they contacted the number they had for her, which was the apartment manager's number. The old lady was fine, but had to be moved to a new building, because even though she was blind, she was very meticulous with her cleaning. She cleaned everything often. The manager had come in to do some maintenance for the first time in many months. Every room in her apartment, above head level, had thick webs and nests of black widow spiders. Hundreds of them. Can you imagine? An oblivious old lady walking around blind in a house she thinks is...
Pause it. Have an hour night sleep. Wake up in the morning. Run cross. Unlock it. Walk it back up. Good night, boss. Good night, boss. Good night, guys. See you guys in the morning, yo. 5 in the morning. Head to school, but Red Cross. Unlock it. Walk it back up. See you, boss. See you, boss. See you, guys. Let's go to over here. Right here we do. Press play.
spotless, but there is a soul-freezing nightmare swarming all over the scene.
How born for that, yo.
One day while doing my laundry, one of the lights blew out in my basement. My basement is set up so that the laundry room is split from the other side of the basement with a wall and a door. In order to get upstairs, you have to exit the laundry room and go through the other part of the basement. Since there was only light on one side, it was really dark. I finished the laundry I had to do while dreading the walk through the dark basement. I exited the laundry room and got halfway through the basement when I heard a loud cackle. Imagine a sound people make when they try to imitate a witch. Take that and imagine that the witch had been smoking for 50 years, making her voice deeper and hoarser. That is what I heard, clear as day, right behind me. I did not look or hesitate. I bolted for the stairs. I waited until my father got home and then changed the light bulb. I have yet to hear that cackle or anything else since, and I have not told a single person in the house about it. About 30 years ago, my mom went on a blind date. Her date took her to a restaurant, and although he was nice enough, she just wasn't into him. Not even halfway through the meal, she was already thinking of ways to leave early. The waiter could tell. While my mom's date was in the restroom, the waiter approached her and asked her if she was okay. She explained that she was on a blind date and not having much fun. It turns out the waiter was just about to get off work. He offered to give her a ride home if she waited another 10 minutes. She considered it and was about to say yes when her date came back from the restroom. She gave a subtle head shake, no, to the waiter, and then smiled. She and her date finished their meals, and then he took her home. The next night, my mom was watching the evening news. A story comes on about a woman being raped and murdered behind a restaurant the night before. The restaurant was the one that she had been at. They showed the murderer's picture. It was the waiter. My cousin and his family had lived in their house for about 5 years. His wife left home to drop the baby off at daycare before work, but realized she had left her phone at home. Entering the house, she turned the corner to the hallway and nearly ran into the drop-down attic ladder, which was fully extended. They never used use the attic as it was filled with loose insulation. She quietly left the house, drove around the corner, and called the police. When the police investigated, they found a short-range transmitter connected to several cameras hidden throughout their home. The light fixture in the shower, the ceiling fan above their bed, even a pinhole in the nursery were sending videos to a nearby location. Their neighbor, a few houses away, had been given a key by the prior owners and installed surveillance equipment once he knew their schedule. My cousin's wife walked in on him updating his equipment, but he forgot something at his house and left to get it when she walked in. He had been watching them for years. My grandpa worked night shifts, so my grandma was home alone most nights. Her sister-in-law, Rose, would randomly come over to keep her company. My grandma decided to go to bed early one night. Rose came over that night to see how she was doing. She went to my grandma's bedroom after calling for her with a reply of, "I'm in bed, just come in." Upon entering the room, Rose starts acting weird and telling my grandma that she really wants her to get up and come help her with something in the kitchen. My grandma was ready to go to sleep and was already in bed and really didn't want to. Rose was really adamant for her to come help her, telling her that it was urgent. After a while, my grandma eventually got up and followed Rose to the kitchen. Upon entering, Rose whispers in a panic, with tears in her eyes, "There's a man under your bed with a knife." My grandma, of course, didn't believe her at first, but seeing the panic in Rose's eyes, she knew that she was telling the truth. They proceeded to call the cops and left to the neighbor's house. The cops came and found a man hiding in the closet with a butcher knife. A group of friends was staying at this remote cabin that one of my friend's cousins owned. There were no roads leading to the cabin, and it was a good 3 or 4 day hike from where you parked the cars. I couldn't go at the same time as everyone else due to work obligations, so I decided to head up the same day, but later. It would mean I would have to camp for a night by myself, though. The latter part of the trail is too dangerous to be taken at night, especially for someone who doesn't know it. I didn't care. I was kind of looking forward to it as I've never camped alone before. So I was in the middle of these woods when the sun went down. I got my camp set up in a small clearing, probably 40 feet across. I got my campfire going and pitched a small one-person tent. I did all of that camping stuff like cooking hot dogs on a stick over the fire and made some s'mores. I probably stayed up for a good 2 or 3 hours after dark. The entire time, I thought I heard stuff moving in the woods on the edge of the clearing. I didn't think anything of it at first, because the woods are full of animals, but as the night went on, I realized that whatever it was just circling the clearing, over and over. Once I started paying attention, it made 4 or 5 laps around before I decided to get up and investigate. The noise stopped as soon as I stooped up, and I thought I heard some sound going away through the woods. I just shrugged it off, thinking it was some fox that probably got curious, and then got scared when I stood up. I decided it's time to go to sleep. I doused the fire and climbed into my tent. I start to doze off and stay in that half-asleep, half-awake state for a while. I normally hear weird things when I'm in this state, so I don't think much of it when I hear a voice. Something wakes me completely, and I realize the voice is real and right outside my tent. It's just above a whisper, and I'm not sure if it was another language or if they were speaking English in such a way that I couldn't understand. I lay there for some time, I don't know how long, listening and waiting for something to happen. There is just enough moonlight to light up the walls of the tent, so I can see when a hand presses onto the wall of my tent down near my foot. This freaks me out and I sit up quickly. Whoever was outside of the tent disappeared. I could get out of the tent and shine my flashlight around, and I see nothing. I was expecting there to be a bloody handprint on the tent, but there was nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I packed up my camp at first light that morning and booked it to the cabin. I was playing around with a radio once when I was a kid, just slowly spanning through the static, trying to find a station. I had found an old television antenna, attached it to the side of our house, and ran a wire out my window to it with an alligator clip attached to the radio antenna, allowing me to get a way broader range of signals. So I'm sitting there early in the morning, like 2 a.m., slowly sweeping frequencies, and suddenly I get to this station that's playing this very weird crackling sound. It sounded sort of like cracking knuckles, or maybe Rice Krispies cereal, but with a fixed, rhythmic pattern instead of being random. I sat there listening to it for a second,